What is up, YouTube? Fable Grimroad back again with yet another Card Fight Vanguard deck profile. I've been getting some trades in, do some trades online, go into my friend's place in Lancaster trying to get more stuff into this game. So as I'm sort of like fixing up on my Yu-Gi-Oh stuff, I wanted to try to get some of these videos out of the way as I've been finishing up some of these decks. This deck I'm giving you guys is the Tsukuyomi Oracle Think Tank deck. Quite possibly one of the most infamous decks in Vanguard, especially when Vanguard was just beginning. One of the most popular decks in Vanguard, as it's a highly technical deck. Focuses a lot on manipulating your own deck. I'll explain it more as I go through the video about how you manipulate the stack with the deck. So let me give you guys a quick rundown on the deck. I'm still missing like 2 cards out of here, but it's not a huge issue. It's still functional. Your starter is Godhawk Ichibiyoshi. This is the starter for the Tsukuyomi Ride Chain. At the beginning of Ride Phase, you check the top 5 cards of your deck and look for the Grade 1 Crescent Moon Tsukuyomi. If it's there, you can Superior Ride it. Your other Grade 0s, I run 12 crits in the deck. Let me set these guys aside because I need to explain them a little bit. The Psychic Birds. These crits help you get some damage pushes in, especially since you don't make the greatest of numbers in this deck. And they work very well with a unit that I'll explain later on when I get to Grade 2s. But I run 12 crits. A lot of decks that can run 12 crits do, just because critical triggers are like best both offensively and defensively. There's also this guy, the Psychic Bird. Let me do a little thing about him. Is with the Tsukuyomi skill, you have to have it requires 6 cards in the soul, and when you're done with the Ride Chain, you're gonna end up with 5 cards in the soul. So with his effect, you can put him into the soul and draw a card. So not only does it let you draw cards and cycle through your deck, but it's also another card to add to your soul, and I'll explain why that is important later on when I get to the Tsukuyomi chain. But it's one of the most important triggers in the deck. You absolutely have to run it in the deck. I also run 4 heal, Lawson's Magus. Don't ever use her ability in this deck because usually the shuffle back in the deck when she's called and she gets a 6,000 boost or whatever and you get to reuse her. Usually that's really good, but not for this deck because the shuffle effect will mess up with your deck deck manipulation. So don't ever use her effect in the deck. Grade 1s, we have the Grade 1 Tsukuyomi, just a 7k. Her skill is that during, just like Ichibiyoshi, during the Ride Phase, you can check the top 5 cards, look for the Grade 2 Half Moon Tsukuyomi, and if it's there, you Superior Ride it. So we have 4 of her, 4 of the 8k Vanilla, another extremely important unit in the deck as it helps you hit certain numbers. I only have 3 of the Perfect Guards. I'd run 4 if I had the 4th. And I also have 3 Dark Cat, which is the 7k booster when it's called to the rear guard or vanguard. Both players draw a card. What I'll probably end up doing is cutting one of these for the Perfect Guard, just because every deck pretty much needs 4 Perfect Guards nowadays. So that's something that I need to change personally for the deck. But right now I'm running 3 of each. Also, the Dark Cat spot's sort of like a flex spot, I feel, because you obviously run the 4 Tsukuyomis, you obviously run the 4 Vanillas, the 4 Perfect Guards, And then from here, you can pretty much run whatever you want to. I find Dark Cat to be the best because it helps you draw cards and cycle through the deck. Some other options, it's like Coco, Circle Magus, Weather Girl Milk, the 10k booster. All they're nice options, but I find Dark Cat's draw ability to be the best as it helps you cycle through your deck. So that's my grade 1s. Grade 2, I have 4 Crescent Moon, or Half Moon Tsukuyomi. This right here is probably the most important part of the Tsukuyomi Ride Chain, because this is the one that you really have to hit. When she's placed on Vanguard, if you have the other 2 in your soul, you soul charge 2 off the top of your deck. And then she also has the ability that at the beginning of your ride phase, you check the top 5 cards and look for the grade 3 and superior ride it. This soul charge 2 ability is extremely important for setting up Tsukuyomi's skill, because the grade 3 Tsukuyomi skill needs 6 soul. So you would have Ishibiyoshi, the grade 1, grade 2, soul charge 2. And then I'll explain that that's only going to leave you with 5 in soul by the time you get to the grade 3 Tsukuyomi, which I'll get to when I get to that ability. When I get to the grade 3 Tsukuyomi. I have 4 of her. I have 4 Battle Maiden Tagitsu Hime, who gets plus 3,000 when you have 6 or more soul. So she's your 12k attacker for the deck. Again, the importance of having 6 soul in this deck if you haven't seen the theme. Oracle Guardian Red Eye, a 9k attacker on the Vanguard or Rear Guard. When it hits, you soul charge 1 off the top of your deck. This is another way of getting that 6 soul, because as I said before, you only have 5 soul by the time you're done your ride chain, so you have to either use Red Eye or Psychic Bird's skill, or you have to re-ride something to get that 6 soul. So this is another very important piece, but I only run 3 because I just need the effect to go off once, and that's about it. And then the other grade 2 that I have is I have 2 Silent Tom. I need to get a third one of these, I feel. I'll probably replace one of the Red Eyes for it. Psychic Tom is quite possibly one of the most devastating units in this deck, and has an ability that's really only exclusive to just him at the moment. And that is, he's only an 8k attacker, but he has an ability that your opponent cannot guard his attack with a grade 0. So that is extremely, extremely devastating, as you know, you use your triggers after you get them to guard with, as they're like your 10k shields. So he forces you to either guard with your grade 1 or your grade 2 interceptors. And he's extremely deadly with critical triggers. So if you draw check a critical, give the power or the critical to him. If your attack's not going to go through, your opponent's going to have a tough time guarding his attacks. It's also important to have the grade 1 8k, the Gemini, behind him as well, because that gives you the magic number of 16, where if you're facing off against 11k Vanguard, they cannot guard the attack with just one 5k interceptor or grade 1 guard. So outside of a perfect guard, they would have to use 2 cards to guard, and he's extremely devastating to your opponent as far as guarding goes, because his ability to not guard with grade 0s is insane. Alright, so that's the grade 2 lineup. And now for the grade 3 lineup. For Full Moon Tsukuyomi, the grade 3, she's an 11k Vanguard, but she'll get minus 2,000 on the Vanguard or Rear Guard if you don't have the other 3 pieces in your soul. So that's why it's very important to get the riot chain off as best as possible, whether it's through its own ability of looking at the top 5 cards of your deck to superior call the pieces, to either soul charge the pieces through either the grade 3 Tsukuyomi skill or through something like a Red Eye, or to just have them in your hand and normal ride them as much as possible, because this deck is very reliant on you getting your ride chain off. So that's her first ability. Her second ability is to if you have 6 or more soul, counterblast 2 to draw 2 cards and then put 1 into your soul. This is obviously a very, very good ability for getting cards in your hand and allowing you, to cycle through the deck. And then the putting a card from your hand into your soul ability lets you possibly get a piece like a full moon or crescent moon that you might have misrode, and you put that into your soul, so that way she stays as your 11k Vanguard and you get your 6 soul that you need. Because the way that this ride chain is going to work... Oh, and then, before I explain that, the other grade 3 I run is CEO Amaterasu. She's sort of the best backup Vanguard that this deck has. While you have 4 cards in hand, she gets plus 4,000, so she's a really nice attacker. During the beginning of your main phase, you soul charge 1, look at the top card of your deck, put that card on the top or bottom, so that's more deck manipulation as well as soul charging, which you will need for to get to Hime, Tsukuyomi, etc. And then she's also the Mega Blast of draw 5 cards, but you never ever get that ability off. But just her attack boost and the soul charge, check the top card ability alone, makes her one of the best alternate Vanguards if you don't get the Tsukuyomi ride off. And sometimes I find myself even riding her over Tsukuyomi because I just need that extra push for game with the attack, and after I use up my counterblast, Tsukuyomi doesn't really do that much. So CEO, I run Tuber as the backup Vanguard. So let me explain sort of how this ride chain works a bit, and maybe give you guys a bit of a sense of how your field should be set up. Is you're going to have your starter Ichiyoshi as your Vanguard. Check the top 5 cards of your deck. Look for the grade 1 Tsukuyomi once I find where I put her. Here we go. Ride her, and then the other cards that you check will go to the bottom of your deck. And each of the Tsukuyomis that ride up to the grade 3 have this ability of putting cards back on the bottom of your deck. So you would go from the 0 to the 1, the 1 to the 2. If you have the other 2, you would then soul charge 2 cards off the top of your deck. So, any 2 go off the top of your deck with the soul, and then check the top five cards, and you ride up to the grade 3. Now when you ride up to the grade 3, you have 5 in your soul. So this way you have to use either, there's a few ways you can get that 6 soul in this deck. You can either re-ride the Tsukuyomi, so that way you get 6 soul that way. You can either ride Amaterasu before the grade 3, or use Amaterasu's skill to soul charge 1, etc. to get more soul. You can either use, you have a red eye somewhere along the line to, if it hits, you get the soul charge 1, which gives you your 6 soul. Or what's probably the best and most common way that I do it is the Psychic Bird, where you use its ability to put it into your soul and draw a card, and that's your 6 soul right there. So this is probably the way that I usually do it the most. So when you have your 6 soul, you are able to activate your Counterblast 2 ability of draw 2 and put 1 into your soul. Outside of that, you want to have your field is you're going to want to have preferably the 8Ks, but you can also have one of your 7K boosters as well, either extra copies of Crescent Moon or Dark Cat as 7 to 8K boosters. Outside of Tom, it doesn't really matter as much number-wise. Tom is the exception because you need to have, as I explained before, you need to have the 8K behind Tom to help you hit 16, and then they have to guard with at least 2 5,000 shields. So you want to have Tom on your rear guard. Red Eye, you only need to get its effect off once, so you don't really need it as much on your rear guard. And then Tagitsu Hime is also nice because she's a 12K attacker with a Gemini behind her. She gets a 20K. She hits for 20. Or even with a 7K behind her, she gets 19, which is still not a bad number to get either. So this way is sort of like how you want your field to be, and then you can have your extra copies of your Tsukuyomis, Red Eye, Tsukuyomi, stuff like that. Even call Tsukuyomi or CEO to the rear guard if you have to, because they're not going to do much else in your hand outside of you just putting in your soul-to-soul charge or re-riding. So calling in the rear guard is also not a bad option either. Tsukuyomi's minus 2000 skill also works on the rear guard, as well, so just keep that in mind that you need to have the grade 0, 1, and 2 in your Vanguard, even if Tsukuyomi is on the rear guard. So the whole goal of the deck is, and it's hard to kind of show you guys in the video, is you want to use, as you go through your ride chain, you want to put cards back on the bottom of your deck, and that way you would, and then just keep drawing cards, put cards back into your deck. That way you cycle through your deck after a little while, once the late game comes around, once you're starting to ride to grade 3. And that way you know what cards are going to be coming off your decks. That way you get to sort of like stack your triggers, stack your damage, so you know what's coming up. You have to sort of like predict the future the way that you stack your cards. So you can put all your triggers together and say like, oh, I'm going to get a trigger now, and then a double critical trigger, something like that. And that's what makes the Tsukuyomi deck very deadly, is this this deck manipulation. So it's my friends essentially call it like legal stacking, because that's what the deck is you get to sort of set up your deck the way that you want to as far as attacking and damage goes. So that's the deck as it is right now. I still need to get a 4th perfect guard and probably a 3rd Tom in this deck as what I want, but it's pretty functional right now. It's done okay for me right now. I still haven't tested it very much IRL yet, but it's definitely a very fun deck to do. Still worked on it. This used to be a very competitive deck back in the early days of Vanguard. It's since tapered off of the competitive scene a bit, as a lot of other more consistent, more powerful decks have come out. But because of the 11k Tsukuyomi, because of abilities like Tom and Tsukuyomi that hit for a lot of damage, this deck is still very potent in the competitive scene. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys learned something from this deck. Please give me feedback on this deck, because I've really been trying to focus on this deck a lot lately. So I want you guys to give me feedback as much as you want to. I know there's a lot of videos about the Tsukuyomi decks out there. It's a very popular deck. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Peace out, YouTube.